Hi guys. Judgment and mercy. Two big concepts that people always associate with God, and even people who don't necessarily have a very, sophisticated metaphysical understanding of God, or who aren't interested in that aspect of God. Most people are very interested in the aspects of God involving justice, judgment, and mercy. It's very important, I think, that by going back to a metaphysical understanding of God, we can understand why God might have these attributes and why he might have perfect justice and even more perfect mercy. There's usually a tradition, especially in Christianity, that God's mercy, in a sense, trumps his justice, that God's mercy is total, as revealed by the Christian story and Christ on the cross. But even in other religions, like Islam, God is considered all-merciful. So there's an idea that the mercy trumps the justice, but that they're both fully embodied in God, and that perfect justice will eventually have out. I agree that this is true, and I agree that God's justice is perfect, and his mercy is even more perfect. But how can we make sense of this? And what is a danger in this in terms of how we relate to the concepts of justice and mercy? Think of it this way. What God's justice is God's inevitable power to reveal to people, both individually and as a world, ultimately the truth. And the truth of their own goodness or badness, their own sinfulness or holiness, their own lightness or darkness. And justice is simply the revealing of this fact to oneself. And the punishment is intrinsic to the revelation. Again, imagine that God is a super qualia form in qualia space, necessarily existing, and understands its own existence through its being, through its own necessary existence through its being, and that this form has the power to actualize contingent states, so it both would, project light and draw all created light towards it. This is a great visual, spatial metaphor of God. God is projecting the light of creation, and then he's also drawing the light towards it in time, perhaps, let's say. Maybe that's what time, a way you could think of time. In this drawing toward God, which is the truth, literally the truth as a necessary qualia object, the truth draws all being towards it, and the darkness, as it's being illuminated by light, reveals the truth to itself. And justice results. Justice will be the recognition by the self of one's own either goodness or badness. And then the punishment is intrinsic to the revelation in a way that we can't quite understand. But it's not that God's judgment or justice is like human justice or judgment. I mean, justice is blind, right? That's the traditional image. It's just the truth, And to think of God as enjoying justice or enjoying imparting judgment is not to understand the concept right, because God is perfectly happy in himself, perfectly loving in himself, and ecstatic in himself, and the justice and the pain of the justice is just intrinsic to the contingency of the being who recognizes its badness. And God's mercy is the revelation that all one needs to do to break out of any judgment is to accept the truth and then transform the self with love that will just be divinely given to you through grace in a way that's supernatural and kind of mysterious, but real. Because the love is superabundant, because God is love. Just emanating it in qualia space, right? It's a big danger to find oneself enjoying too much the idea of God's justice or judgment, the idea of wanting to see God as enjoying giving those who have sinned or who are compromised their just desserts. That's a human desire. And it's a dark desire because God, insofar as he relates to creation at all this way, would want no justice. He would want pure mercy. He wants everyone to come to him. He does not want to punish. He wants mercy because he is love. But it's up to the freedom of the will and the freedom of the person to welcome that mercy. I mean, this is not an unheard of concept in religion, in Christianity. This is pretty, textbook. But nonetheless, it's important to remember because too often people enjoy the idea of God's judgment and God's justice, and they project their own dark impulse to want to accuse people onto God, as if that was part of God's essence, and it's not. Because ultimately, you need to confront your own problems and your own sinfulness and beg for God's mercy, find that source in you, because your darkness will be revealed. Your pain will be made self-evident, and your compromises will be known to you, and you will have to judge by simply seeing what you are. I mean, God's judgment is ultimately a self-judgment, in a sense, but it's a compulsion of self-judgment. You just see the beauty and what you could have been and what you are, and how sinful you are or non-sinful you are, whatever. But if you get into the accusatory mode, proclaiming and looking forward to God's justice, oh, God will get you. That is the accuser. That is Satan. Satan is the accuser, means the accuser. Do not let yourself become the accuser. Don't even accuse yourself. Only God can really know how guilty you are. Only God can really know how compromised you are, because there are even contingent things that you're not aware of about yourself, and the pressures you were under in the subconscious, dynamics that were influencing your behavior and whatnot. So one must be merciful with the self as well. Become the mercy of God, not his judgment. Love your enemies, Jesus said. It's very serious. It's a very serious thing to love your enemies. It doesn't mean you're passive towards the world or you're passive towards evil. No. You play out your proper response to evil, and you evaluate and ascertain what's going on in the world and its goodness or evilness, and you fight for what's right, but not in the mode of accusation. In the mode of more engagement with the aesthetic story of confrontation with evil, because your enemies often are the deepest vision of your own problems. I mean, that's, it's true. It's obviously true. Look within and you'll find what your enemy is without. So love your enemies, both hoping that they change their ways and come to see the light, so to speak, and also love them in their aesthetic role as your enemies and the people who are a story needs an enemy to a certain extent. The human story, because we have demons, and we have to confront something. And the deepest enemies are within us. But become God's mercy, not his judgment. Because if you become God's judgment either to yourself or to other people, it's a conflagration of pain, ultimately, until it's overcome and it becomes totally mercy. And totally love, which is the truth. Which is the truth, you see. Judgment is real, and it's deep, but it's something we see, not a thing God feels. Again, God doesn't change his mind about things. He doesn't go from one state to the next. Pure love. So be merciful with yourself and with others. Have faith in God's justice. Absolutely. Love it. Love God's justice and judgment, but love his love and mercy more. And become mercy, not judgment. That is a dark, dark path. Thanks, guys. Love you. Bye.